Welcome into another episode of Debate Night. We are back once again. We've got some interesting things to talk about this week. It is USDGC week. Finally, we have reached that point in the season. So we are going to kind of preview that event a little bit. But before that, we're going to hop into the schedule drop that just came out, talk a little bit about that. Obviously, one of the main talking points we talked about a little bit last week with the rescheduling of Champions Cup. But now we have the full thing. So we'll take a look at that and see what everybody thinks. Joined today by Hunter.
Hey.
What's up? We got Brodie as well.
I like not going first anymore. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, took the pressure off you a little bit. And then Jonah is here, known Miami Dolphins fan.
Yeah, my team took a beating, but at least the Pro Tour rewarded me with the All-Star weekend about half an hour away. So
there you go. They also gave you the most creative named tournament ever, the Florida Open.
I'll get into it.
Yeah, they really dug deep for that one. All right, so we're gonna hop into that schedule drop first.
I do wanna just point out someone did make a good point on Facebook that you're looking at just the Florida Open before all the presented by, sponsored by.
That only makes it worse.
You know, well, I was just saying it'll be a much more complex name. It's not
going to get any better.
The Discraft presents the Florida Open, sponsored by MVP, fueled by Double G Craft Jerky, groomed by Manscaped. You know,
I mean, graciousness, it's something else. All right, well, we're going to talk about that schedule release first, and what obviously, when everybody looks at it, the biggest takeaway is that major Champions Cup being rescheduled at the end of it. That's the obvious glaring issue that most people have with it, and we did talk a little bit about that before on the show. So my question here is, what is your biggest takeaway? It could be good or bad from the DGPT schedule release, other than the Champions Cup being moved. What is something else that stuck out to you, Hunter?
I did want to just briefly mention, I thought it was funny that, well, I guess not really funny, but it showed the different audiences in disc golf, because there was a lot of people that are like upset at the Pro Tour for scheduling the Champions Cup when they did and just completely missed the Beetle narrative. So that was an interesting thing to see going on in the Facebook comments. But the West Coast snub was my initial thing I was going to bring up, but that's not actually a true narrative after looking at last year's schedule, because last year we had LVC, OTB, and Portland, and this year we have Beaver State Fling, Portland, and OTB as elite events. Obviously, there was more silver thrown in, which is why I think it feels like a bigger deal this year, but we don't know the qualifying tour schedule yet, so I think that might fill in some of those gaps. So the West Coast snub isn't actually a true narrative to me. I think the biggest takeaway here is Las Vegas Challenge missing from the tour is pretty big in my opinion. I think that event had built up some history, and as much as people don't like golf courses, that golf course was becoming a lot more recognizable out there. There were still a lot of like signature holes. We've got to play it. It played very well, pushed the tour, and it had a lot of room to grow. So in my opinion, this is something that must be going on behind the scenes for the Pro Tour for them to remove it, because there's also a perfect slot when we're heading towards the West for it to fit in right there. And like I said, it's a course that was growing with the tour, so it's not something we outgrew. So I think Las Vegas Challenge missing is a pretty big storyline that we might never know the real reason behind.
Yeah, certainly a pretty big omission there. Brodie, what was your biggest takeaway from that schedule?
Mine is all in on Texas. I think you look at a state like California, one that has, a lot of history in disc golf, and it has one event. Texas now has three. One of those being I'm going to call it an elevated event. I don't like the plus thing, because just saying a plus event is kind of weird. And so you have to say a disc golf Pro Tour plus event, which I think is also way too long. So I'm just going to say an elevated event, right? I think they're going all in on Texas. You've got Waco now, a tournament that a lot of us thought was on the way out of the Pro Tour. Playing that course, it doesn't feel necessary. I mean, the fact that we're playing it early in the season, I think that's kind of what we're able to get away with it. But if that tournament was later in the season, after we played all these other tournaments, it would feel so much weirder playing on that course, because it doesn't fit in with all the other courses that we play. It's very short. It feels outdated, but it sounds like now they are going all in with this other course that's in the area that they haven't, that hasn't been seen on the Pro Tour yet. So we'll have 2 rounds at the normal Beast course right by the Brazos River. And now we're going to have 2 rounds. So Waco will now be a 4-round tournament at this golf course that, we did a video of. I don't know how much it's going to be like the video that we filmed out there, but they're going all in. They're moving Texas State's up to an elevated, not to an elevated, but to a normal event. They didn't drop that. They dropped a lot of silver events. That was one they did not drop. And then obviously the Open at Austin that also some people didn't like. They're keeping that as well. So it seems like whatever metrics or analytics that the Disc Golf Pro Tour is using to decide what stays and what goes, it seems like Texas fit the bill and they're going all in on Texas.
Yeah, certainly interesting to see 3 events pop up there. All right, Jonah, what were your takeaways from that schedule drop?
I mean, yeah, obviously Champions Cup is the big one there, but you got to think about overloading October in general. I mean, this has kind of been the theme for the past 3 years now. You got USDGC, you got the Tour Championship, and, leading up to that, I think Maple Hill is even later in September this year, or in 2024 rather, and no wraparound events, at least those that haven't released yet. That could be part of the qualifying tour that they're going to announce later on. I would hope that they release some locations for that they have confirmed. I would think that at least maybe by the end of October, they have more of those stops released. Maybe Las Vegas Challenge is a stop that they're thinking about for a qualifying event. Maybe they're thinking, Kansas City Wide Open is no longer there. America. I think this is the first time that De La is not even on the tour at all. It's been the Silver Series in the past.
Not this
It was
year.
an 8-tier last year. Okay. Still, I'm not sure if pros are even going to want to stop by this year at all, considering the schedule of the tour. So, yeah, definitely a lot of things to look at. I do think that the whole the United Series, like resolution to the Natalie Ryan situation from earlier could be an influence for moving away from California, Brodie. Particularly moving away from the states that there may run into those illegal issues. But other than that, I do think that a lot, Hunter hit it nail on the head. I think Vegas is a huge loss. But yeah, I would really hope to see that back and would love to see where those qualifying stops might be.
Yeah, certainly. It's kind of quieted down, like all the legal battles and such. But I think that we were all kind of waiting to see if the locations of the tour next year would reflect maybe their legal strategies. Could be argued with 3 stops in Texas that there is something to be said about that. Certainly, very sad to see Vegas go. As somebody who just finally got to play Wild Horse and see how awesome that course is, it's definitely a bummer. We'll be interested to see if that does slide in as a qualifying event or if it's gone altogether. Hopefully not. All right. So one of the big things that dropped with the announcement of the schedule, much to Hunter's, I don't know, much to his benefit, I should say, as an analyst, as a journalist in the sport, is that silver events have been effectively scratched, at least as they were before. They are no longer going to be on the schedule awarding points. A Pro Tour event will only be named so if it is at least of the Pro Tour level. There still is the plus level, maybe next on Hunter's list to eliminate, but we at least have no silvers for now. So my question is, do you think the Pro Tour made the right move cutting them the silver events now? And then will the qualifying events be successful for the tour? Because it's certainly going to be interesting to see what their strategy is there, how many players they'll actually attract. What do you think their goal is with those as well? Brodie.
Yeah, so I think this was obviously the right move. We saw it firsthand. It's just getting worse and worse and worse as players' contracts are getting higher and higher, as purses are getting higher and higher. You're having more and more players not care about the smaller events. That makes sense. You go and you look at golf. There's a reason why so many golfers went to live. I don't have to play as much golf. I can make more money. That makes a lot more sense. I don't think the majority of people on tour want to be playing every weekend or want to be forced to play every weekend. And that's what we saw from the silver events last season, that the only ones that were really well attended were the ones early in the season, the ones that were in between events that were already geographically makes sense. No one was really going out of their way. And like I said, early in the season, you're trying to play some events to kind of get going. It doesn't also make sense for a lot of people to literally drive past a silver event that's on the way to the next event. So that's why you had some early in the season be successful, and then later in the season, as we saw, literally no one showed up. So I think the Disc Golf Pro Tour is focusing on events that make them money. I think that is the wise decision for all of us, fans, players, everyone involved, because if the Pro Tour doesn't make money, the Pro Tour doesn't exist. So they need to really start focusing on what events make the money and what events don't, and cut those out. And as far as the qualifying events go, I don't know exactly how that is going to end up working. I really am hoping that is something that if you do have a tour card, you are not allowed to play in qualifying events. I think right now the bottom half of the field doesn't have an impact on viewership at all. If you take the top 30 guys, top 40 guys, whatever number you want, and then you exchange the bottom half of the field with a new bottom half of the field, I don't think that changes anything at all. So what really needs to happen is there needs to be a fair way of getting on tour and a fair way of getting off tour. And I think the fairest way of doing that is having all tour card players playing tour card events, all non-tour card players playing these qualifying events. And then you can have something set up similar to what golf does, similar to what soccer does, of where there's some sort of regulation of where the bottom people get pushed off and the top people in the qualifying tournaments or qualifying series get moved on. And that's how you kind of have that cycle.
Yeah, definitely will be interesting to see what they do with that. Jonah, what do you think about the silver events?
Yeah, I mean, that had to go. It was coming. I think it was mainly just a testing ground for the qualifying series to see the players that would come out to those events. And obviously, the touring pros who were able to make it out there, have the advantage. They've been on tour. They've played against the best of the best, and we've seen a lot of first-time winners at those Silver Series events just because those events were super weak compared to the rest of those touring pros. And I feel that hopefully the qualifying series can generate a second audience of well, either the same audience in a different thing or a new audience where the Pro Tour can say, hey, is there a way to make these events more popular if there's a good fan turnout, if there's good viewing experience? And I don't think they're going to. I'm not even sure if they have the funds to stream these events. Hopefully, they find a way to make that happen if there's fan demand for that. I'm not sure if that's going to happen soon or not, but I don't know what the strategy of the Pro Tour is. I hope that they find a way to make it so that fans can pay attention to the qualifying series, regardless of if it is covered or not. But hopefully it's a way for the Pro Tour to improve their product. The plus events, I don't know if, at least what they're doing is they're making it different from the playoff events in terms of points. So at least that's an improvement for this season. But in terms of the plus events versus the silver events versus, I feel like there's still too many denominations of events. The Pro Tour is just trying to give names to things that don't really need different names. Yeah, maybe a plus event has 4 rounds versus a regular Pro Tour event has 3 rounds, but they don't need to be different things to be worth different things. At least to me.
Yeah, definitely still a little foggy with all the different points available and whatnot. But all right, Hunter, what do you have to say about your precious silver events?
Yeah, the Pro Tour definitely made the right move here in moving on to the qualifying series. I think it's the right time. As Brodie had mentioned, the interest from player and from fan point of view of silver events is going down and down. It does kind of stink from not kind of stink. It definitely sucks if you're a local community that had a silver event because you were at least getting maybe some top pros coming to your area and you're not going to get that anymore. I don't think, to counter Jonah's point, I don't think this is going to have anything to do with how popular these events are spectator wise or viewership wise or stuff like that, because they're not gonna be. It's basically gonna be like your local A tier. You might have 20, 30 people show up to watch it, and that'll be that. Also, I don't know why Brodie was shaking his head because I do think these are things that should be covered. Because what I think this does for the tour is it gives, yes, Brodie, it should.
Not
because
live.
It gives,
not
yeah,
live.
No, I disagree. I fully disagree because they just removed all silver events from us as Disc Golf Network paying subscribers. So this is a great supplement to still give us content to consume week in, week out. And this is a huge storyline to follow. We always want storylines of disc golf. I do agree what Brodie was saying of This will be a good way of in and out, and this will give more depth to the field, because it should increase the prestige of the tour. You know, you have to have a tour card to play on the tour, and the field strength over time should increase because you have to work to earn your spot on the tour, and you have the pressure of losing your spot once you have earned it. So the silver events kind of already were marketed as less important. To me, this actually gives them more value than previous, because before you had really good players beating a really weak field, and you're like, okay, what the heck does that mean? Now you can have rising stars have a place to shine week in and week out. You can have those storylines develop. It can be more engaging for us diehard fans. For the common fan, they're just going to watch Elite Series, and at least now you don't have this confusion of was it a Pro Tour win, was it not? But for us diehard fans, us media people, it gives us more storylines to follow, as you'll have up and comers shining and making a name for themselves in a place they deserve to.
Can we talk a little bit more about this? Because I think this is something that we actually all disagree on, or at least I disagree with Jonah and Hunter on. Of that, they should not put funds into these events.
Well, I mean, if a lower media company, not necessarily Jomez, but like an Ace Run Pro, for instance, if they want to, pay the Pro Tour money to cover these events, is it worth
now the media companies have flipped. So nowadays, in my opinion, Jomez would be the cheapest to cover, but live you can do on a skeleton crew basis. You don't have to have the top end DGN production go out there. They're gonna still put time and energy into this qualifying series, probably the same amount they're putting into silver events.
Why?
Because why wouldn't they?
The whole point to not do it, Hunter, is to not lose money on these events.
In my opinion, it is probably cheaper, and this could be wrong, but in my opinion, it would be easier / cheaper to just have the live production happen versus try to get and pay an editing team to cut together all the post-produced stuff.
I mean, it is certainly an interesting point.
You just have the hours of out there filming. That's it.
Hunter did make an interesting point talking about
we didn't even touch on the European. They said that European Pro Tour events are also going to happen this year. So whether they have the silver designation or not is to be determined. But it's not like
silvers are dead.
They still might have silver events in Europe, and we just don't know about it yet.
Well, silver events won't count for Pro Tour points unless they lie. Because they said the only way you can earn Pro Tour points is Pro Tour Plus, playoff, majors. So unless they lied in that article, silver events can't earn your Pro Tour points. But they do seem to not want to kill the silver name, to Jonah's point, because they did kind of hint at silver events won't happen in the U.S. But if they happen in silver events in the Pro Tour and the Europe, they can't earn you Pro Tour points unless the Pro Tour just lied to us.
I just want quickly, though, just going off of numbers, if I'm the Disc Golf Pro Tour and I'm looking at numbers of how many people are viewing stuff, I'm on Central Coast Disc Golf. Shout out to them. I'm on their YouTube thing. You look early in the season where Texas State was one of the better fields in silver, or attended by silver people. You look at the names that were playing in those tournaments. You have 93,000 watching round one, round two, part two. So back nine, you have 63,000. Then you go to the Discmania Open, which also had Eagle McMahon and Isaac Robinson, two massive names, especially with Isaac coming off of the season that he was having. You go round one, part one, 54, so a drop. And then you go round two, part two, 20, 30,000, 35. So it drops a little bit. And then you go to a tournament like the Jim Palmer that I don't know anyone that went to that event. You now are in the 14s of thousands. 11,000, 18,000.
I think the most interesting point, though, is that
the argument isn't will less people watch than if Eagle McMahon and Isaac Robinson are in the field. Duh. The argument is that should still be covered because that's huge storylines, and we're paying DGN subscribers.
I think the subscription.
But listen to this, Brodie. If I have now a month in between, right, and there's no Pro Tour events because there's only 18 Pro Tour events now, or 17.
Where do you have a month in between in the schedule, Hunter? That's what I don't think people understand. Where's there a month of no event?
There's some months where there's only one event at the beginning, and then there's one event at the very end, and I might not care, so I can cancel my subscription. The Pro Tour needs constant engagement because they want you to continue and see value.
Well, it's also it's a huge loss of value when you lose all those silver events that you got as a paid subscriber.
Still. So why would I pay for live when I'm getting 18 live events and I can watch Jomez for free?
I don't think you looked at the schedule. You have March, 3 events. March you have 4 events. April, 2 events. May, 3 events. June, 2 events. July,
I've heard two events in 2 different months.
August,
Exactly
3
what I said.
events.
So
September, 3 events. No, you said 1. You said
No,
I
1.
said
You're
2.
gonna-
You
I
said
said
one at
2.
the beginning and one at the end.
2 is fine. 2 events in 1 month is fine. You have an event
You
every
have
other
to remember,
weekend.
they're
That's
asking us to
fine.
pay $11.99 a month. Okay, $11.99
Yeah.
a month to watch 2 live events that I could wait and just watch on Jomez. When last year I got all these silver events, you have to supplement that value.
Yeah, it
and we're
is-
not going to supplement it with a reality TV show called On Tour. No one's
Yeah.
watching that crap.
It is
Only
definitely
way you're supplementing
interesting.
it is the live
No one's
disc
watching
golf.
the silver either, so I don't.
But it as a value add. It doesn't matter if people watch it. It's a value add.
The on
because
tour is
I
a
will
value
be-
add. Do on tour. That's a value
No,
add
that's
too.
different. I'm paying to watch live disc golf. I'm paying to watch live disc golf. I'm not paying for a Netflix subscription.
Well,
So if I'm paying to watch live disc golf and you give me 4 weeks of live disc golf,
maybe they
then I
should
can,
have
like-
2. Maybe they should have 2 different payments then, because I don't think that is what you're paying for. You're paying for the disc golf network that encompasses all this other stuff. Maybe they should have another option that's $5.99.
I would like to meet the
and
people
all
that
you
pay for
get-
Disc
would
Golf
you-
Network and aren't paying for live disc golf.
But no,
I'd
no,
like
I'm
to shake
saying
their
no. I'm
hands.
agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you. If you're literally saying all I care about is live disc golf, I don't care about all this other stuff that they're throwing on there. Maybe there should be another payment plan that's $5.99, and all you get access to is live disc golf. You don't get access to
Well,
all these other
in my
supplemental
opinion-
programs.
in my
right?
personal opinion,
would that be
yeah.
a good move?
Well, I think the better move is if they need to cut costs, like you're saying, they don't want to put money into this, trim the fat of all the non-live disc golf crap. If you want to cut costs, stop paying people to produce all of that. Because I'd be shocked if people are watching.
Yeah, like I
all
wonder what
these,
the
like,
viewership is of
excess
all
shows.
the skins matches that are going to the Pro Tour. They're going to the Disc Golf Network first, and all the GK Pro stuff.
Don't they have
like the big money
podcasts on
skins
there
match didn't have
still?
anymore.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They have podcasts on there. They
Right,
have
like are
on
people
tour,
watching
they have-
those?
they're spending money, sometimes hundreds of dollars per host per episode, from what I've heard. Cut all of that, and there you go. You can now cover more live disc golf that people will actually consume versus producing all this little stuff on the side that no one's asking for.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird one, because I do feel like most people, like, they obviously are trying to create almost a disc golf hub of media, but most people do just use it for the live disc golf. And it's an interesting one, because like the silver events made up a lot of what you were offered as somebody who wanted to watch live disc golf, and losing all of those and keeping the same price, it's just gonna be interesting. I don't know if I've heard a lot of people talk about it yet, but who knows? I'll be interested to see.
They ended up losing 6 events, right? Is that what it was? Because they had 8 silver events, and they added.
They lost more than
moved-
that. They only added 1 Elite Series
Well,
net. I just did the math this morning.
Texas states got promoted. They added Florida Open.
Beaver State got
Florida
promoted.
Open takes over. Florida Open removes
Vegas.
or takes Vegas,
And
so
Beaver
that's not
State
really
got
an ad.
promoted.
Yeah, from the math I did, there's 17 this year, and there was 16 last year, or 17 in 2024, 16 Elite in 2023. So
Mhm.
I think they lost a lot more silvers than you're thinking.
If I had to guess, I would say that the qualifying series, like Hunter mentioned, are going to end up being run like local A tiers, and they're probably not going to live cover them. If they do, they might like live cover like down the stretch. Like, it wouldn't be the
It's like
worst.
final round.
No, I mean like on the season. Like, okay, if they do like a points
Oh.
thing, and okay, now these are the players, because like the Corn Ferry, you're probably not going to really
Like the
see it much
playoffs.
until they get to the
Yeah.
playoffs. So
Yeah.
that might be what they do. It'll be interesting to see. But the storylines would be great. I mean, it'd be fun to latch onto people, because that is how you can transfer fans instantly. You think about.
Can we? I know it's like a nice thing to think about, but let's be realistic. No, like only super diehard, very small groups of people care about that stuff, right? Like,
what do you mean?
diehard fans are the ones that are watching G League basketball.
Yes.
Casual fans are watching the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
What are we
Are we
getting
not
at?
supposed to care about diehard fans?
Well,
Diehard
like,
fans are the ones that pay you the most.
Yeah, so those are the ones.
to the
Pretty
point,
much, diehard fans are the only ones paying for Disc Golf Network.
Let's also let's just be
that's
let's be
what I was
clear
saying to
here.
your point. I think that's the problem. Is I think we
Only
don't
diehard
have, like, a
fans are watching
casual-
disc golf.
Yeah. There's not a lot of casual disc golf watchers out there.
No, because I would say the casual ones are watching the ones that are watching the post produce. I think that's our casual.
If they were casual, they wouldn't be that mad on social media about spoilers.
I think the spoiler shield, it was the comment of the year on Gomez this year. So
Yeah,
I mean,
they
have an intense fan base.
They get
for
fired
sure.
We
up.
might need to talk about this in the future though, because this is an interesting topic of like what does our casual fan consume? What is our diehard?
I think
fan
casual
consume?
fans consume majors, and they might, but it's a weird line of what's casual fan, because like if you're into disc golf enough to watch disc golf, you're probably not a casual fan of disc golf.
Yeah, I would say
Like
mostly
I would consider myself a casual fan of pickleball, but I don't watch pickleball. I'll just
I
like
guess
see
if you
highlights
think
here and
about the equivalent, the casual golf fan just watches the majors. I think that's fair to say. Like if you're a casual golf fan, you may even go.
Also, the majors
Maybe-
are free with cable or free with an ESPN.
Right.
That's
So
what I'm saying. It's a
that's
really
what I'm
easy
saying.
way to consume.
Yeah, I don't know if the casual disc golf fan is going anywhere off of YouTube for sure. Like I
That's
think
why
if you have
casual
Disc Golf
YouTube-
Network, you're no longer a casual fan at that point. That's
Correct.
why them offering something
paying.
like the qualifying series is an immediate value add.
correct.
Now, I don't know that
As
it
well
should
as the
be
Euro Tour. I think that was a good
Right.
value add.
right, and people watch that, and I don't know if broadcasting live every single, because I think they should try to cut some costs, and ultimately you're going to have fields that nobody knows about. But the goal would be by the end of the season, there's a couple standouts that people can get excited about and then track them into the tour. That would be exciting. It's, who is the PGA rookie? Was it Sahith who was on the
Heath
the
Tagala.
documentary? He was a unknown rookie, but that show gained him a lot of transfer fans over
We need
onto the tour.
to come back.
But no, the problem was that show reached an outside golf audience. My
Correct.
wife loved that show.
Yeah.
It wasn't on the Disc Golf Network.
Future question, I think, for the show should be: should the Disc Golf Pro Tour be focusing on the casual fan or on the diehard fan? Because I think the nature of disc golf for the few years that I've been in it, it seems like you're just trying to pull as much money as you possibly can from the same group of people. Should there be more focus on gaining bigger, more of a casual fan viewing base? Because I think what you guys all just said makes a lot of sense. Of like right now, most of the stuff that the Disc Golf Pro Tour is putting out is for the diehard fans.
Well, I think, in my opinion, I think the Pro Tour's content strategy is backwards a lot of times. Where, like, to me, I don't understand. I think that you'd have a better success getting actual eyeballs on the on tour stuff and stuff like that. Whereas, like, when it's behind the paywall of Disc Golf Network,
Right.
people aren't watching it. There's too much disc golf content out there. But if you put it out there to YouTube, then you might have more people would watch it. That's just a fact. B, you have a better chance of it going semi-viral. You'd have to cover it in a way they're not doing it, but you cover it in a way that's like willing to just show like a disc golf reality TV show in the actual sense of the word could be a great piece of content that could grow disc golf, but it's not going to happen if it's only behind the Disc Golf Network.
Right. Anything that caters to the casual fan.
To follow off of Brodie's is what grows the sport? Does actual different sets of eyeballs grow the sport, or does the dollar sign grow the sport as well? Like, is that what do we want to focus on there as well? It's kind of.
Well, I think they're correlated.
Yeah, but I mean, I also only have a certain amount of money, so if you keep coming after me, I eventually just have no money left.
There you go.
Well, that's the problem in disc golf is the outside money in disc golf is the fans.
Yeah,
we're
gonna move on. We're gonna move on. We'll be talking about this for now.
That everyone take a point away from me. That's my fault. I let us down that tangent.
That made the show more valuable.
No, it was an important conversation. Yeah, it was an important conversation. I don't want to cut off good trains of thought because it was a good train of thought. Listen, we squeeze the disc golf content sponge very hard. So when we get something interesting, we're going to sit on it for a while. All right. We're going to talk a little about USDGC to round out the show here, a few topics. So the first one I just want to ask is, moving into USDGC, who's your favorite to win? Who should be the betting favorite at this event? Jonah.
Considering how bad the end of his season was, I hate saying this, but I'm going to go with Calvin. I think he has had this time of a break of 2 weeks to really reflect on the rest of his season and be like, hey, like, I'm capable of delivering a dominant performance. We've seen it from him multiple times this season. Yes, it was months ago back in April when he won, Jonesboro, when he won Vegas earlier this year. But he has that in him. He has that dog in him. I think that if he can really unleash that, and he has those capabilities. His forehand is severely improved from previous seasons, which is a huge. We all know that's a big focus of the USDGC course. Although backhand dominant players have won it for however many years in a row, which is whatever storyline that maybe we'll get into next week. But I definitely think Calvin has a chance to really make a name for himself and close that narrative of can't win a major, can't perform well at a major. And considering how consistent he is, regardless of where he might wind up finishing, he always puts himself in a chance to win going into that final round. It's just a matter of closing it out. And I think he has a really good chance to do that this season. So I'm going to give it to Calvin.
Extra point for the bravery to call the end of his season bad in front of all of our Calvin fan viewers. I'm sure you'll hear about that one. All right, Hunter, who's your favorite?
Well, first off, the end of Calvin's season has been phenomenal from all standpoints except for the win column. And he's extremely consistent. Calvin's a solid pick if this didn't have the letter M next to it, which it does. So unfortunately, Calvin will not win, and that was an awful pick. The player that I think is the best pick going into it is Eagle McMahon. He's getting hot at the right time, has proved himself on this course before previously. He's also hasn't finished outside the top 5 from July till now, and I know what you're thinking. Oh, well, Calvin's done the same thing. Well, he's also 3-2-1 against Calvin during that same time frame. He's the best and most consistent player in the world right now. I don't think there's an argument against that. And he's won 2 majors before, one being last year. So he also doesn't have that pressure on his back like Calvin does walking into this week. I think Eagle McMahon is definitely the guy to beat out there.
Okay. Brodie, do you have a different pick?
I'm a stats guy. I'm going by the stats.
Oh, okay.
UDIS win percentage never has let me down.
What's the top one there?
Eagle is the top at 20%. Ooh. Hunter picked that. So obviously I'm not picking that. Calvin Heimberg, second, 18%. Jonah picked that. So obviously I'm not picking that. Who's third, you might ask? Maybe he has won this tournament before. Maybe he's won this tournament last year. No, that would be Gannon Bird. He's 11%. Third is Ricky Wysocki at 13%. Ricky Wysocki is my pick this week. Why? Because I'm a stats guy. And I'm going straight stats, and UDIS never lies.
You're a stats guy. So you took the So your stats guy.
Rankings are
here's the
best stat in our
never
game,
lies.
Brodie.
UDIS never lies, except if you are trying to qualify for the USDGC. Then UDIS does actually lie.
Explain that.
I don't understand that one.
Oh, you guys don't know about this?
No.
Wait, let me see.
Is there a Monday qualifying thing?
You know what? If I can answer this, what I just said, I can answer this in the last question of rapid fire. So if I get into the finals, then you'll hear
it.
Okay. Wow. Bribery.
Well,
okay,
the last question of rapid fire goes hand in hand with what I just said.
Okay.
So I can't give away 3 points.
All right. So talking a little bit more about the USDGC, we gassed it. We spent a whole month gassing it up, basically talking about how it's the greatest thing ever. And it's just so perfect. It's the best event. So my question is it the only perfectly executed event on the pro schedule, or is it a perfect event at all? If there's any flaws that you think still need fixed, what are they? If there's another event you think goes toe to toe, what is that? Is it as perfect as it may seem to us sometimes? Back to Hunter.
Well, I wouldn't say any event is technically perfectly executed. But I think USDGC is as close as it gets in disc golf. I've been to majors, multiple different majors. I've been to multiple different pro tours. I've experienced high-level disc golf across years, and every year USDGC tops all of them. I think the flaw to it, though, because I think realistically the only flaw is actually one of the things that allows it to be such a well-run event, which is the venue. Because obviously the big flaw here is twofold, in my opinion. One, the optics. You can't get around the fact that we throw from a stadium at some points. We're throwing over parking lots at some points. They're trying to push that away, push it back. We have to bring in artificial Christmas trees to make the course harder at different points. Mozzarella sticks have been used. That's all because of the venue and not owning the venue. What is Brodie showing?
Ms. Merry Christmas. Because you said Christmas trees.
Oh, okay.
Anywho,
I don't know where my train of thought was. Anyways, the venue is the bad part of the event, but it's also what allows that event to shine. Because if you think about what a college campus provides, first off, so much parking where you can treat VIPs like VIPs. Secondly, you also have the paved walking paths that go all throughout the entire course, which makes it so easy for spectators to walk. Um, and also, it gives you a lot more extra areas where you can have increased fan experiences like the championship village, like the little tiki course, like the spectator course, like all the vendors, like all the food trucks. So the only flaw to the course, in my opinion, is the venue, but that's also, I think, what makes it be able to stand above the rest when it comes to how it's ran.
Okay, Brodie, as somebody who's played in this event multiple times, is it perfect? Are there flaws? Is there another event that's better?
Yeah, it's tough for me. Like a lot of stuff that Hunter said was kind of more on the fan experience side, and it's tough for me to obviously have too much input on that, just simply because I'm playing the event and not actually like kind of seeing a lot of stuff that maybe is behind this behind the ropes. But there are a couple events that we play from the pro standpoint that kind of match USDGC as far as just scheduling goes, parking goes, just how smooth the event is run for us. The big a couple ones that I would say, like, if you want to call them flaws, sure. I don't think they're that big of a deal, but like this event doesn't have a practice schedule for us. So every other previous event that we've played for the majority of the season, we actually have to throw in tee times that we want to, so that way we don't show up to hole one and there's like 20 people trying to play hole one. That doesn't happen at this event. So you're kind of just luck of the draw. And when you show up to your practice rounds, again, not that big. I think the major flaws, though, if we're talking about course specific on this, is hole 1 and hole 18. Both are not great starting or finishing holes in the sense of fans like viewing. Hole 1, no fans can get behind the player. All of them are like on the side, and it's like a very obstructed view. And so, like, starting off the tournament, I think is a big deal. There's not really a good starting off, like having the fans kind of encompass the tee pad. And then hole 18 is a really poor finishing hole as far as getting a lot of people in that can even see what's going on around the green. So those two, I think, would be probably the biggest flaws when it comes to it. Even like hole 17 is tough. Like I wish hole 17 in an ideal world, there was like a floating stadium seating out in the water. So you could act, because that's the best viewing point of like being out behind the basket. That would be incredible. Obviously that's a big ask, but I just think those are the big flaws for the fans watching it there on the grounds. I think you can have some people talk, and I think Hunter, you mentioned it last year. It was difficult for some of you guys to kind of see what was going on down the stretch.
Yeah, did not see Gannon Burr tap out his winning putt on 18 last year.
Gotta stay on
Impossible
your
to get
tippy
up there.
toes, man.
Well, it's a tough one because, like, do I want a good spot on 17 or 18? And that's basically it. And you know what, dude? Just for that, Jonah, what do you think about USDGC? Flaws, better events?
In terms of events as a whole, I think this event does a lot of things right in terms of what Hunter said with the fan experience. The idea, I think the Pro Tour in general is trying to build this idea of bringing people to the event and really develop their in-person spectator base. So I think USDGC does a great job of that. It also encourages, that being said, with what Brodie said in terms of the viewing experience for the actual play, I think that the gimmicks of some of the holes are a little bit, beyond what a major should be, or below what a major should be, rather, with the mozzarella sticks, the Christmas trees, the baseball field, the fences around the tennis courts on hole 10 and 11. Like a lot of those things are just totally draw back from the optics of a major specifically, and I think that's really just one of the only things holding this event back from being a really just beautiful, pristine way to wrap up the season. And I think that if we want to, it's just whenever I watch coverage or when I go live someday, hopefully in the near future, that it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth a little bit. Like, yeah, on hole 2, I have to putt through these logs. Like, yeah, it makes putting more difficult, but there are more elegant ways to do that. There's more, unique ways to do that, whether it be elevated baskets, which I know Brodie's a huge fan of, changing the terrain, which the course does a good job of with the beach hole, with the different areas of mulch they have, and things of that nature. But I think that bottom line, the overall event as a whole is only a few steps away from being a total icon in the sport, more than it already is. Unfortunately, we'll have to see whether it sticks around at Winthrop or not, and that's kind of the dangling, the Pandora's box waiting to be opened.
Yeah, it's always just kind of sitting there in front of us. All right, before we get into rapid fire round, obviously Brodie and Jonah are tied right now. Brodie, you could have won if you wouldn't have made fun of me. Here's how we're gonna do this. I'll give Jonah the slight advantage as a Dolphins fan.
Brodie's mic's muted.
Brodie, yeah, you mute yourself. The Giants are going to the Dolphins next week. Whoever can guess the line as it stands now closest, it gets to move on. Brodie, I'll let you go first.
Giants plus 6.5.
Okay. Jonah?
I'm actually going to this game this weekend, so I'm very hopeful that I get this right here. Let's go Dolphins. Dolphins 8.5.
What 8.5?
Oh, like up
Some
8.5.
some minus 8.5.
Yeah, minus 8.5.
I mean, Trevor.
It counts. It's fair enough. He knew what he was saying. The actual line is Dolphins by 10.5 points.
Yeah,
so
I was gonna say that's got to be a blowout.
You guys, I don't know if you guys
Giants
watched
up.
that game last night, but that line, I'm surprised it's not 13.5 at this point. So Jonah, you are the winner. You do know your team better. Brodie is out of here. Let's move on to rapid fire round. I guess we'll never know what his hidden secret point was. So he'll just have to tell us
What happens when you
afterwards.
choose the Raiders over the Cowboys, I guess.
Oh, there we go. Empty the clip. Here we go. All right. So rapid fire round. I've got a stopwatch on the screen. Shout out Silas. I've got just the visual in case anybody thinks I can't count because I was using a stopwatch anyways. But 45 seconds. Every time you go over, it's a point for each second. You know how it works by now. All right. First question. Hunter, do you want to go first or second?
I'd like to go second.
Okay. Ooh, I like that. Okay. Jonah, what is the best hole at Winthrop Gold Course and why is that? Go for it.
I think it's going to be hole 5 for me. I think just the way the hole plays, the way that the viewership experience is for the fans. Par 5s are always one of my best favorite holes on any course. The philosophy of the course design, which Jeremy Colling has outlined in previous post-produced coverage before, is the 350, 350, 350, which I think is a really good way to demonstrate skill and precision when it comes to a par 5, which a lot of par 5s on tour otherwise are just throw a big bomb, have a huge second or third shot, and just have an easy tap in. So definitely going to be hole 5 for me. And then the optics of the green are just totally beautiful.
Yeah, certainly one of the best looking holes. My only qualm with hole 5, I wish it were more enticing to eagle. That's my only qualm. I wish the players could get a little further down the fairway, but it is probably one of the best holes to view from there's plenty of space and it does look gorgeous when you first walk in and see that lake and it's glassy water. It's great. Hunter, what do you think the best hole is?
I was going to go with hole 5 if the tee pad was in its original spot on the dock where you had to attack the water once. Being up on the hillside, I don't like that hole nearly as much as the one I'm going with, which is hole 17. I think it's specifically not necessarily the hole design itself, but the placement on the course, the walk from 16 to 17. There's so much time there to think about what's coming up. And then the history of that hole adds so much pressure that if you have the major in your grasp, you're thinking about it from like hole 14 on. You're like, well, I just got to get through 17. I got to get through 17. You can try to get your mind off it, but you can't because that hole has eaten people's lunch so many times. We've seen people like Johnny McRae slip and fall on that hole. It's just difficult enough to make you think, and the pressure of a major with that walk leading up to it fits it perfect. Hole 17.
Hole 17, but most iconic hole in disc golf, surely. All right. Now we're going to flip the coin a little bit. Which hole at Winthrop Gold needs changing the most and why, Hunter?
I wanted to go first here. This is why I wanted to go second first, is because there's only one answer here, and I didn't want someone to take it. Hole 4 sucks. It's awful. It doesn't fit the vibe of the course at all. It's just a little tunnel shot, pitch and putt. I don't know what they're thinking. It could easily be replaced. Just go back to the old 3 and 4 if you even want to, because sure, the new hole 3 might be technically better than the old hole 3, but the power 1-2 punch of old hole 3 and old hole 4 miles better than new hole 3 and new hole 4, or just go over to the golf course and find something over there for hole 4. But hole 4 doesn't fit the vibe. It feels like we just kind of step out. Everyone forgets that hole even exists. And then you step back into it at hole 5, hole 4, got to go.
Yeah, it does stink. Jonah, what's your answer?
Yeah, I don't know why USDGC decides to change different holes every year because hole 3 and 4 were totally amazing the way they were originally set up. I'm gonna go with hole 3 personally. That the optics of that par 3 when the way it used to be there, I thought was a really awesome way to continue that opening of that course. And I think that the optics of the hazard maybe are not necessarily the best way to introduce the course in those first 3 holes. But if you think about it with the flow of the course, it really gives a way for the players to catch their breath a little bit after hole 2, which is an uphill par 4, which is that tee shot is pretty demanding if you're in a bad spot. So hole number 3 for me.
Hole number 2 is no longer a par 4. It is a par 3 now. Unfortunate. But I will say I do miss hole 3 a lot. I think hole 3 as it is now is a good hole, but I liked it better when hole 3 and 4 exist as they were. I always loved that hole. That was a very fun one. And I thought hole 2 was better as a par 4 as well. So I wish I could forget about it being a par 3 too. All right, final question. I will say honorable mention for a hole that's really good that I really like on that course. Not necessarily because of the way it's designed, but just because it's fun to watch is hole 10. I believe that's a tennis courts hole because every time a player has a bad round going and they get an eagle on that hole, you just see you get this switch flipped, and it's always a very fun turning point in the round. Not a great disc golf hole, but it always provides interesting results. All right, final question. This is one that I feel like I needed to bring up because I feel like we always used to talk about this topic a certain way, but I might be changing my mind on it. So is Innova's, if you don't know this, Innova has owned the United States Disc Golf Championship since its inception in 1999. And so my question is Innova's ownership of USDGC good or bad? Have they proven that they deserve to keep it indefinitely and that they have, responsible ownership of this major? Jonah.
I mean, the event speaks for itself, and I think that Innova's ownership so far, at least maybe not ownership necessarily running the event, is great for the USDGC. They have proven time and time again that this event is one that people want to come to, one that pros want to come to, one that pros want to win, and one that the sport really idolizes. So I think that in general, the ownership, maybe not so much, but the running of the event should stay with Innova for the foreseeable future. Now, have they proven that they deserve to keep it? That is where I kind of go back and say that they don't need to own the sport. I think the PDGA or whatever entity needs to own it, but I think Innova should still run the event.
Okay, Hunter, what are your thoughts on this? Curious to hear.
So historically, I was Innova's ownership of USDGC is bad for the sport. I have flipped it because of 2 things. I think Innova's ownership is good because first, they now allow other manufacturers to be involved. Historically, there was an Innova-only event, meaning only Innova product was sold, only Innova product was pushed. Now they allow other manufacturers to be on the ground, be involved, and it feels much more like a normal major. And the secondary thing is we've seen how the PDGA runs majors. You're not going to have Brodie Smith having to fork over $1,000 to rent a driving range here. Innova makes sure everything's ran smoothly. So I think they have proven they deserve it and that they should run it indefinitely because mainly those 2 facts that have changed and now changed my opinion.
I gotta say, we've always talked about that a certain way, but I'm starting to trust Innova as an organization more than a lot of other ones. And I'm starting to they've been ethical. They've allowed other companies to come in. They're not being, hoarding the event to themselves. I'm starting to think they might just need to be owning more events at this point. Like that's
should
should
Innova own the PDGA? Maybe that's the question that should have been posed.
The Foundation Innova simp comments are just flying in right now. All right, well that's gonna do it for our episode, Hunter. In the stopwatch on the screen era, first dub.
It's because I know how to talk fast. That's what it really is. You just got to be able to ramble.
Hunter's been traumatized by Dustin a few too many times, I think.
Well, no, I don't know how to read fast. I know how to talk fast.
Somebody needs to call Dustin out. He hasn't been on the show since whatever I did to him. I don't even remember at this point.
You took 8 points from this. It was a fair stopwatch era, 8 points, but that was the episode I got screwed.
I think this show needs to start ending with a UFC style call out at this point.
You know what? Here, I'll call it out. I want to go toe to toe with Dustin. No notes allowed.
No notes. Improvise
just off
only.
The dome. We don't see questions. We can't have notes. Just
brother.
Head to head. I want to go head to head with Dustin. No notes, no questions, just off the dome. I want to see it.
Fight of the night, 50 G's.
Drop in the comments, y'all, if you want to see a head to head tournament of debate night. I would love to be a part of that.
Head-to-head debate night
style.
That might be the off-season move, the tournament. Brodie, what cereal we got there?
There's a little Raisin Bran with bananas.
Oh, heck
yeah.
yeah. I'd eat that right now. All right. Leave a comment down below if you also love Raisin Bran. We'll see you next week to probably talk about the conclusion of USDGC. If you're going to be at USDGC, well, so will Hunter and I and Brodie and Jonah.
No, I will see y'all at the All-Star event in Orlando.
No, we're not going to that.
No,
Stupid.
there, sorry.
That's stupid. You need to go to the USDGC.
Not this year, guys.
Maybe. Hey,
tune
that
into
would
Tour
be
Maybe
Life
next
if you
time.
want to hear the juicy story that I got.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. On-site tour life
Didn't
coming
make
up this
didn't
week.
make finals, so have to tell in Tour Life.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll see you there at USDGC, and we'll see you next week with another episode.